Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Funny story, you're not going to believe this one. Well, you probably all will because it's just typical of the sort of thing that I do. I thought today was Saturday. Now that wouldn't normally be a problem, but I kind of have this video upload scheduled. Normally, Saturday is Warhammer 40,000 day. And since there was no Warhammer 40,000 video on Wednesday, instead I did Destroyer, the U-boat hunter, which was amazingly popular, by the way, very good to see. I thought in order to make it up for all the Warhammer 40k fans, yes, all 8 of you, I would do an hour-long Warhammer video for Saturday. And I didn't realise that today wasn't Saturday until I woke up this morning. Imagine, if you will, my surprise when I realised that today was actually Friday. Imagine my panic when I realised I didn't have a World of Warships video ready to go. So this is something of an emergency World of Warships video. Fortunately, thanks to Anti-Spiral here in the HMS Agincourt and Jimbo over there in his Italian counterpart, the Julio Cesare, I did have this Tier 5 domination battle on the... How do you pronounce this anyway? Archipelago? Anyway, but this map. I had this ready to be edited and turned into a video. It is, of course, a Tier 5 battle, which means there's a decent chance that everybody involved is actually going to be able to have some fun, especially since there are no aircraft carriers in play and only one destroyer per team, which is great news if you're in a battleship. On top of that, there are lots and lots of crunchy, chewy, extremely fragile and explosive cruisers for all of the battleships to nom nom on. Which is obviously fantastic news if you are in a top-tier battleship like HMS Agincourt here, and Jimbo's Julio Cesare, a very, very strong Tier 5 battleship. I don't think anybody would ever accuse the Agincourt of being a very, very strong Tier 5 battleship, though. In many ways, the Agincourt is kind of the polar opposite of the Julio Cesare, whereas the Julio Cesare's main feature is definitely its guns. It's also fairly quick, by the standards of Tier 5 battleships at least, where the Agincourt is not. And the Julio Cesare's guns are kind of strong, they're fairly accurate, it doesn't have a lot of them, but they're pretty accurate and they hit pretty hard. You cannot say that about the Agincourt's guns. It has a lot of them, 14 305mm guns arranged in 7 turrets. I mean, just look at all of those gun turrets. Unfortunately, unlike other ships that have a lot of guns, the Tier 7 French battleship, the Lyon for example, which is not renowned for its accuracy, but it's not terribly inaccurate, the same cannot be said of the Agincourt's 14 305mm guns. They are hopelessly inaccurate at anything other than point-blank range. And even at point-blank range, most of your shots are probably going to miss. It can be quite hilarious when you're in the Agincourt and you're shooting at a target 6 to 8 kilometers away and you're seeing shots from the same turrets landing 200 meters apart. I mean, that's how bad these guns are. And yet I would still wholeheartedly recommend the Agincourt. It's one of the most fun ships to play, and it's because of its secondaries. I reckon this ship has the best secondaries of anything that you're going to play below Tier 8. You don't start seeing battleships with better secondaries than this until you get to something like the Massachusetts at Tier 8. And even then, the Massachusetts secondaries only beat those of the Agincourt when it comes to the range at which they can fire. The Agincourt actually has significantly better damage per minute from its secondaries than the Tier 8 Massachusetts, which is a secondary god. I mean, people buy the Massachusetts mostly just for the secondaries, because of how much fun it is to play. The Agincourt has an almost double the secondary damage per minute of the Massachusetts, and it's only Tier 5. It's 20 152mm guns. I mean, look at them blasting away here. They, even without any commander skills that support and buff the secondary guns... Oh, hang on a second, that Phoenix. Okay, it's a bot, but still. You don't give broadside like that at this kind of range to anything, not even an Agincourt. There it is. There's the double strike, the Karlsruhe and the Phoenix. Before we come back to the Agincourt, I'm just going to switch to the perspective of Jimbo in the Julio Cesare, because he has a much, much better angle on the Svetlana that's nosing around the corner there. And straight away you can see the difference, because Anti-Spiral has scored 14 main gun battery hits with 1 Citadel. Jimbo, yeah, a lot more than that. That's his 4th Citadel. He's already up to 74,000 damage. But he hasn't scored a single hit on anything with his secondaries. It's his main gun batteries that are doing all the heavy lifting in this ship. Meanwhile, back in the Agincourt, Anti-Spiral is treated to a front row view of Jimbo bitch slapping that Svetlana into the middle of next week. And if you have a look at the battle ribbons at the top right corner of the screen, again you can see the contrast here. Only 15 main gun battery hits despite engaging the enemy at point blank range. That's like half of the number of hits that Jimbo scored. But look at the difference in secondary hits, 130. And unlike a lot of other battleships that have a lot of fast-firing accurate secondaries, and I'm mainly looking at the higher-tier Italians here, with their 90mm guns that can't actually damage anything. Oh, hang on a second. An actual player for him to shoot at, in a cruiser. Yeah. Hey, eventually you throw enough shit down range, some of it's gonna stick. And the Agincourt does throw a lot of shit down range. But again, it's all about the secondaries. Because like some of the higher tier Italian battleships, the Agincourt has a lot of secondaries that are too low caliber to actually directly damage anything. The Italians have their 90mm guns, the Agincourt has its 76mm guns, but it only has 10 of them. It doesn't really rely on them. And like the Italian battleships, they are at least good for starting fires. There's his 9th fire. And he took a big chunk of damage there from the enemy Congo while he was busy hosing him down with his secondaries, but by some miracle the main battery 305mm guns managed to find the enemy cruiser a second time. So there's kill number 4, and the secondary hits keep racking up. And it's the 152mm secondaries that are going to be the major cause of damage here, because they are large enough caliber to damage pretty much anything. And the rate of fire is insane, which is why the Agincourt's secondary damage per minute is nearly double that of the Massachusetts, a secondary god, at tier 8. Just in case it wasn't completely obvious, Jimbo did beach himself on purpose here, because in order to escape around the side of the island he would have had to give flat broadside to the Congo and the Derflinger at what amounts to basically point blank range. So instead he was quite happy to just angle up and let his secondaries work the Congo over and sucker him into making a serious error of judgment. Let's just see that one from Jimbo's perspective. Yep, that's a paddling. That is not the kind of mistake a battleship is likely to make twice in the same battle. Jimbo's secondaries are close enough to start shooting now, but even at this range he only scores 1 secondary hit. Anti-Spiral's secondaries, however, claim his 5th kill with their 255th hit. Yeah, the Agincourt's secondaries don't mess around. He's got some, what in any other battleship would be pretty good shots at a New York. I mean, that's not exactly point blank range, but it's decently short range, only 10 kilometers away, and the New York was given a nice flat broadside, but, well, the Agincourt is not about the main battery guns. We've probably established that one by now. Another funny story about the Agincourt, and I believe I have mentioned this in the last video I did featuring this ship, is, well, the true story of HMS Agincourt, because this was never supposed to be a British ship. It was originally ordered for the Brazilian Navy, who shortly after ordering it, and once construction had started, experienced a bit of an economic downturn and could no longer afford to pay for it. So then the Turks, the Ottoman Empire at the time, stepped up and said, actually, we'll have it. And it became something of a national prestige symbol in Turkey, with all kinds of organisations, schools, hospitals, fire stations, police stations, businesses, all chipping in to raise money in order to buy it. And then the First World War happened, and Winston Churchill said, because he was in charge of the Navy at the time, actually, no you won't, we're going to take that and we're not going to pay you for it. It's under construction in our dockyards, we're going to finish it and we're going to call it HMS Agincourt. Thank you very much for paying for everything thus far. Unsurprisingly, this was not a popular move in Turkey, and may have been a fairly significant factor in influencing Turkey's decision to join the First World War on the side of the Axis powers. Not Churchill's greatest move when it came to dealing with the Ottoman Empire, but he would redeem himself later in the First World War with his hugely successful Gallipoli campaign. Oh, hang on. Yeah, maybe not. Well, the team have got this one in the bag, surely. I mean, they've got a 2-kill and 300-point lead with 2 of the 3 cap circles, and just that USS New York over there attempting to hold the 3rd. Friendly Karlsruhe trying to sneak up behind the island there and get some torpedoes away. I'm not sure they have the range, though. It's difficult to tell. Well, I guess we'll find out. You do have to be careful about enemy battleships in the Agincourt because you only have 19mm of bow and stern plating, and any battleship in the game, even the Tier 2 Mikasa, can overmatch that. Anti-spirals loaded the AP, the secondaries are already starting to open up. Unfortunately, that is a very well-angled New York, so the high explosive would probably have been a better choice. Still, we'll see what happens. Yeah, that was pretty underwhelming. Unfortunately, while the New York is taking a lot of damage, it has managed to get line of sight on the Karlsruhe. That was a fairly significant tactical error of judgment on behalf of the Tier 4 cruiser player. He's dead. And of course his torpedoes hit nothing, and now the New York, actually both New Yorks, are free to concentrate on Anti-Spiral's Agincourt. And it's not the best armoured battleship in the world, although the New York is suffering from Anti-Spiral's secondaries. He's managed to set even more fires now. He switched to the high explosive, good choice. But he's out of heals, he's down to 12,000 hit points. He's down to less than 10,000 hit points. Oh, this could be the end. He's taken a serious battering there. Yeah, this might be it. It might be all. It is all over for Anti-Spiral. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And the enemy team have equalised the kills and pulled even more points back. I guess we're going to have to switch over to Jimbo here in the Julio Cesare, who has scored precisely 1 secondary gun battery hit, around about 316 less than Anti-Spiral, but 71, soon to be a few more, main gun battery hits, including 4 citadels. Because the Julio Cesare is actually a good ship with good guns. I mean, I still recommend the Agincourt because it's fun and the secondaries are hilarious. But if you need a ship to rely on, and you had to choose between the two, the Julio Cesare is it. Try and take out the Derflinger. There we go. Kill number 2. Let's put them ahead again. I mean, they're still ahead on points. Although, maybe not for long. They've still got double the point score of the enemy team, but the enemy team have held on to Charlie, and they're now flipping Bravo. And the French Corbeil over there is on extremely low health and giving broadside to at least one of the New Yorks. I mean, he's trying to angle away and get himself into cover behind an island, but one of those New Yorks has some shots in the air. Yep, there we go. And suddenly it's even again, at least on kills. But there's 7 minutes to go, and while the points situation is still in favour of Jimbo and Anti-Spiral's team, it's about to start getting a lot worse, because well done to those 2 New Yorks. They've managed to not only hold on to Cap Circle Charlie, but they're also about to finish flipping Bravo, which means they'll have points coming in from 2 caps, and as long as they can both stay alive, and nothing else happens, they're going to win this match within the next 7 minutes. Now, one of those New Yorks is on very, very low health. There he is. He's the guy who flipped Bravo. Jimbo takes a shot, elevates it as much as he dares, and yet some of them do still clip the island, but scores a reasonable amount of damage on the New York, and now he's probably going to have to rely on his rear turret, or turrets, he has 2 of them, to try to finish him off. He's going to have to go for superstructure shots because the New York is angling, and it nearly works. But now he's going to be kind of vulnerable to return fire. And the New York doesn't have the most accurate guns in the world either, but at this kind of range it doesn't really matter. Now we can get the waterline shots off. Bingo, there we go, kill number 3. That just leaves the other New York, who has a fair amount of health remaining. And Jimbo does not. He's just used his last heal, so he'll probably be able to get up to around about 14,000 health, or around about 10,000 less than what that New York just had. Now, in theory, this should be an easy kill. You can see that the friendly Koenig is further up to the northeast, and he currently has shots at the New York, and the New York is angling against him. And between them, they do have the health advantage over this enemy battleship. And this does put the New York into a tough spot, because continuing to drive forward like that, he's advancing into a crossfire. Although there was an island to his north that he could have been using to shield himself from the Koenig, and then take on Jimbo in a one-on-one, a fight that he stood a much, much better chance of winning. If the New York had turned south here, and I don't want to judge him too harshly because he is in a very, very tough spot with a nearly impossible mountain to climb in order to try to carry this for his team, but if he had turned south here, he could have gotten that island between himself and the Koenig, taken on Jimbo, possibly won, and then he would have had options to deal with the Koenig, and it would have still been a tough fight. But instead he's given broadside to both of them, and to be fair, he is under a lot of pressure here, but that's rarely a good idea. And this is the moment where you can clearly see him panicking as he swings the ship around to try to get his rear turrets firing at the Koenig, which just gives the Koenig a nice big flat broadside for him to shoot at, ending the match right there. So that's 8 kills and 331,000 damage in a tier 5 battle between Anti-Spiral in the Agincourt and Jimbo in the Julio Cesare. All of which brings today's emergency World of Warships video to a close. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.